So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and we're right here along the Susquehanna River here in Wrightsville in Berks County. And just across the river is Lancaster County and the town of Columbia. But I'm going to introduce our next canal series, the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. Just recently we finished the Union Canal. That took me quite a while. That was fun though. We're currently working on the Delaware Canal, but we're going to start a new one, the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal, which starts here in the town of Wrightsville. But here is a view of the river. That's Route 462, one way across the river. Over here is the more modern route. There's Route 30. But you can see the remains of some abutments out there. Let me zoom in of a previous bridge. I think you can see them there in front of the old one. In front of the other one. And depending where you look, there's even some others. There used to be a covered bridge, yes, a covered bridge. And at the time it was the longest covered bridge across in the world, but that burned during the Civil War. There's a whole story about that. Somewhere around here you can see the remains of it. I think maybe over, is it over that way? I think. Anyway. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. So this canal was started back in the heyday of canal building. Right around the beginning of the 1800s, there's a flurry of canal building in this country. But they started this one in 1836, and they finished it in 1840. It replaced, there was one on the other side of the river. It was very short. I'll talk about that in a moment. But this one, I left my notes back there. This one runs from here. We're on the west side of Susquehanna. This runs from Wrightsville, where we are, all the way down to Maryland to Havre de Grace. Just found my notes. It was 43 miles long, 30 miles of which were in Pennsylvania and 13 of which were in Maryland. And there's 29 locks along the whole length of it, many of which are now submerged. There's a number of dams that have been built on the Susquehanna River. Holtwood, Safe Harbor, the Conewago Dam. I think that's what it's called. Conewago, anyway. But those have obviously raised water levels in areas that have submerged a lot of the canal and those locks in some places. But you can still see some of the locks. Lock 12 down the way and Lock 13 and others are still visible. Some of those I've been to in the past for other reasons, but there's still some history to see of this canal. So that's looking south. The canal came up this way. I think it actually started just down there and ended right here and went that way towards Maryland. But they actually took the canal boats across here. Maybe the remains of that bridge there. They had like a way of taking the mules across there and pulling the boats at the same time. And on that side, the Pennsylvania Canal started over in Columbia and went up that way along the river. Why didn't it keep going up along this way? That's hard to say sometimes. A lot of times with the making of these canals, politics gets involved, money and business and all kinds of things affect where the canals went, why they were built, and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't always make sense, but that's the way it is. When you throw money and politics and all that stuff into it, that's what happens sometimes. Someone's enjoying the water.
See ya.
Yep. Anyway, so that might explain why when the canal came up to Wrightsville, it switched sides and went over that way. But I don't know for sure. But like I said, there was down to the south of Columbia, there was an older canal. It actually wasn't here in Pennsylvania. They started in Maryland, built about 9 miles of it, and when they got to the Pennsylvania border, it stopped because they were hoping Pennsylvania would continue it, but they never did. Then that one got abandoned in like 1817, and then they built this one, and then the one over there, if that makes sense. So, like I said, they had started one down that way, but never really quite finished it. And then at some point, along with many of the canals here in Pennsylvania and other places, there was a decline, largely due to the railroad. Railroad replaced many canals, but this canal had a lot of debt. There had been floods. When the Susquehanna River floods, it floods, so that can be very destructive. And I think, in 1872, the canal was bought out by the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad. The railroad continued to use the canal to haul coal down towards Baltimore. But I think in 1894, they shut that down completely then. So from 1840 to 1894, this canal operated. from Wrightsville to Havre de Grace, the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. And you know what? I see some turtles, some little turtles hanging out in the rock out there. Let me see if I can zoom in on them. Yeah, they're out there on that one rock. Let's see if I can zoom in. There we go. Yeah, was there two? I think at least two on there. You guys know anything about the canal? They see me over here. So in a previous video, I think it's the video where I ended the Union Canal, I talked about why I chose to do this canal. I'm also hiking what's called the Mason-Dixon Trail. In fact, I hiked a section of that earlier today. But once the trail comes down here to Wrightsville, it basically follows the route of the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. Not entirely, but video-wise and business-wise, if I'm going to be hiking the Mason-Dixon Trail down that way, why not do a series on the Susquehanna-Tidewater Canal too? It's kind of like the whole killing two birds with one stone thing. It kind of makes sense, from a business perspective. Instead of driving all this way just to film the Mason-Dixon Trail, it can also film the canal as well. So that's why I chose to do this one. Kind of coincides nicely with that other series I'm doing. It is a beautiful spot here along the river, though. Even with all the urbanization, he's enjoying himself out there fishing. So we'll see how this series goes. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of asking permission for private property. It's mostly along the Susquehanna River. There's a lot of sections that are submerged, like I said, from the dams, so there's really nothing left. I don't think we'll see too many locks either. A lot of them are gone, either submerged or destroyed. There's a few, but there's some history along the way as well, especially down in Maryland too. So we'll do what we can with it. All right. Beautiful spot. And I was able to find a website that has all the locks listed and where they possibly were or where they are, even with some GPS coordinates. Some it's kind of unsure, like I said, because they're flooded and or just disappeared. But it's kind of nice to have a list, because like with the Union Canal, I didn't have that. Kind of had to find it myself by looking at old maps and just going out there. So I like that bridge. A lot better compared to the more modern one out there. But yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an intro to this series, so that way when I actually start, I don't have to talk about all this intro stuff in that first video. It's also just to let you know what's coming up in this channel. The start of a new series on the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. So as always, folks, thanks for coming along. Hopefully we'll see you on that series. I know some of you love these canal series and some maybe not so much, but I love doing history, folks, and I'm going to keep doing it. All right, thanks for coming along. Hopefully we'll see you on the next one.